Hello, my name is Nanji Mateo. I'm the founder of Interpremed.com and a certified medical interpreter. In this video, I'm going to give you 6 factors that influence your memory retention in consecutive interpretation. The number 1 factor is communication flow management techniques. Flow management refers to all the interventions an interpreter makes during the interpretation encounter to ensure that they can convey the message accurately and completely. A common flow management technique is raising your hand when you need to ask for pauses, or reminding parties that they need to speak one person at a time. Think of flow management as an ancillary tool to memory retention techniques. When you feel like the speaker is going for too long or too fast for you to remember, you need to be able to stop them or ask for repetitions when you need them. There are many reasons why you will want to interrupt the speaker when they are speaking for too long or too fast for you. Reason number 1 being you will want to avoid waiting until the end of the speaker's message and to tell them that you need a repetition, because that will most likely make them feel frustrated. This frustration can pass on to you, you feel stressed, and then it affects your attention and interpretation performance. Reason number 2 is that you also want to reduce the risk of you misinterpreting or distorting the message because you don't remember well all of the details of this long-winded utterance. A good way to know when you should interrupt the speaker is by becoming familiar with your memory limits or your threshold and striving to work within those. Whenever a certain memory limit is passed, ask the speaker to pause. For example, you can use your note-taking paper to measure your memory limit. When you have taken 1 to 2 pages of notes, you can ask the speaker to pause. You don't have to wait until you've reached the page limit to ask for a pause. You can ask it sooner if you need it, but you should certainly avoid interpreting beyond that number of pages in one rendition. Another way you can measure your memory limit is with the number of seconds you can memorize. To know this, you need to record yourself practicing interpretation and count the number of seconds of the message in the source language, as well as assess how many seconds you feel comfortable interpreting without starting to forget. In my case, I know that I can interpret from 30 seconds to 1 minute of a speech, and maybe even more on a good day. So when we are interpreting, it may be harder to know exactly how much time has passed. However, knowing your memory limit in seconds can also help you guide your interpretation practice and get some sense of how much time should you let a speaker speak before interrupting them. So that was number 1, using communication flow management techniques. Number 2, prior knowledge. While it is true that memory techniques like active listening, visualization, etc., are field neutral, meaning that in any interpreting field, legal, medical, educational, you can use the same memorization techniques. Nevertheless, your level of familiarity with the content of what you are interpreting will also influence how much information you can remember. Keep in mind that understanding a topic in detail is not what ensures that you're able to remember it. Otherwise, we could improve our memory retention by reading a lot about a subject. In reality, you have to be both familiar with the content of the topic and also working with the content as an interpreter, rendering the message of that field. So it's a good idea before an interpreting assignment to practice interpretation in the consecutive, simultaneous, and side in translation modes related to the topics that you will most likely encounter during the assignment. 3, emotional state. Even the slightest change in your physical or mental state can impact interpretation. Remember that interpretation takes up all, if not most, of your mental energy, as it is a very taxing cognitive task. If you feel hungry, angry, nervous, or tired, it will negatively affect your ability to focus and interpret. That's why before every interpreting encounter, you want to take 5 to 10 minutes, maybe meditate and put yourself in a good mood. Tell yourself that you will do great, that you enjoy what you do, and this will make you interpret a little bit better because it will facilitate that focus that you need to have. If you're not feeling well, it's better to just skip interpretation that day until you feel better. Number 4 is the characteristics of the speech. Think about all the types of speech and speaking styles that you may come across. There are fast speakers and slow speakers. Speakers who speak in sentences loaded with information, and others who speak in very plain language. Some speakers may have different accents that you are not very familiar with. Sometimes the audio quality may be poor when you are interpreting over the phone or video. So, all of these characteristics of speech can decrease the amount of information that you can remember. That's why I recommend over preparing yourself in your interpretation practice. That is, making yourself memorize really long sentences and render them accurately. So by the time that you are interpreting in real life, with all of these challenges, your memory retention, although it will be inevitably reduced, but it will not be so reduced to the point where it will negatively affect the encounter. And this ties to point number 1 about communication flow management. I mentioned that we need to be able to pause speakers when we need to, but we also need to be able to interpret in the long consecutive mode. So that's why we need to train quite a lot to be able to meet the demands of the encounter. Which takes me to point number 5, your habits. So interpretation really is a habit of mind. It's not like listening in your everyday life. You really need to develop that kind of new sense for interpretation, and it really requires us to use our brain in very, very new ways. As such, we need to develop interpretation habits that are conducive to memory retention. And how do we develop a habit? With practice. We really need to invest time regularly doing interpretation practice, especially in the consecutive mode. And this is going to help you increase your memory retention. And even if during the practice you feel like you frequently cannot remember, you struggle, that's also okay too. So the most important thing is that you are exercising your interpretation muscles and giving yourself feedback. So that should be enough to make progress over the long term. Just keep practicing and keep the habit and you will get there. Last but not least, note-taking skills. Memory techniques and note-taking strategies are two sides of the same coin. We need note-taking to supplement our memory. We write down factual information like dates, numbers, doses, names, etc., as well as the relationship between ideas like cause and effect, conditional sentences, instructions, questions, etc. Note-taking is a whole different skill that deserves to be studied on its own. It is complex, yet it is very effective because it really gives our memory an edge that would be difficult to get if we didn't take notes. So I also have a course on structuring techniques that can help you organize your notes and make them a little bit more clear. So these were the 6 factors that I wanted to share with you today. And remember that we have the webinar Memory Retention Techniques for Consecutive Interpretation on Saturday, February 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'll go in depth through the most important techniques, including echoing, segmentation, active listening, visualization, and how to put it all together. And you'll be able to practice with my feedback and also with specially designed exercises as well. I'll leave all the links in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to click on the subscribe button to receive notifications when I upload a new video. Until the next time!